Daniel chapter 6. My apologies if I look too cool to be reverent this evening. I'm struggling a little bit with a headache, so I've got it as dark as possible up here. So if I don't see your hand or your facial gestures, just throw something at me when it's time for you to speak, all right? On that note, though, buddy, if my head starts spinning and I start projectile vomiting, don't call an exorcist, all right? Yeah, there you go. Daniel chapter 6. Familiar chapter to any of us who grew up in church for any length of time. It's the chapter where we find out that Daniel is on the menu at the Lions Club, also known as Daniel in the Lion's Den. First day on the job, you meet the enemy and don't even know it. Later, company gives you a promotion, a raise, and a new office. All the things you deserve for your hard work and creative ideas. The only problem is that a few of your coworkers are not too happy. They determine to bring you down any way that they can. This is similar to the story we see of Daniel in chapter 6. As you will recall from Pastor Al's teaching, those of you who were both awake for it and remember it, be good if they did, right, Al? There was a transition in Daniel chapter 5, and I want to take us through that because it's miraculous how we even end up in Daniel chapter 6. Daniel is born Jewish into a family of royalty and is being groomed to serve in the courts there in Jerusalem. As a young man, he is taken captive hundreds of miles away into Babylon, and what we have studied largely have had to do with Daniel's relationship to King Nebuchadnezzar and how God used Daniel and his friends to reveal the true God, Yahweh, to the kingdom of Babylon and God's work in that space. Nebuchadnezzar passes, and where we looked at the account last week, one of his descendants comes to the throne and still has that same prideful, arrogant attitude that will get humbled. What's interesting, all that, somewhere along the way, Daniel has either retired from public service or Daniel has lost some of his position of leadership within Babylon. Belshazzar comes to know about him through someone from a prior generation. And once he hears Daniel's wisdom and the handwriting on the wall, Daniel gets elevated to this place of third in the kingdom. So walking through how that played out, Daniel is out of the public eye, at least to some extent, to some degree. He gets called in, tells Belshazzar, tonight the kingdom's going to be ripped away. You're going to die. The highest ruler in the kingdom at that point, he is out somewhere else, conquered or taken captive. Daniel becomes, at that moment, number 2 in Babylon, and number 1's about to die. Can you imagine Daniel's excitement on that promotion? So yeah, we're going to be taken captive and you're going to die. Great, I'm going to make you my number 2 for today. Daniel gets this huge target painted on his chest. Somehow, Daniel not only survives, but when we get into chapter 6, he's in a totally different empire, totally different ruler, totally different value system and language spoken, and yet Daniel is still thriving through that transition. Join me. We'll start in the first few verses of chapter 6. Let's go through the first 5 verses to get things started, all right? It pleased Darius, or Darius, to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom, and over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first. How did he pull that off? That the princes might give accounts unto them, and the king should have no damage. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes, Why? Because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. Then the presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find none occasion nor fault, for as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. Then said these men, We shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. The interesting thing I want to pause and consider about this integrity of the man Daniel. Daniel's enemies worked together. These were not people who were deprived of resources or deprived of intelligence. These were people of some prominence who sought to destroy Daniel, to discredit him. They went to great lengths to find anything they could about him. They conduct a full investigation. This would have involved his political activities. How many politicians do you know that could serve for decades? In Daniel's case, 60 or 70 years. Notice I didn't go to decades, young people. 60 or 70 years in public policy, and he's clean. That's impressive. They go to his finances, they've got nothing. His personal life, they come up empty. It said here that they could find no corruption in him. He wasn't corrupt. He wasn't negligent. He had proven himself trustworthy over the years. There was nothing hidden or dishonest in his dealings. He had shown himself to be consistent regardless of the situation, regardless of the kingdom. He had been faithful in big responsibilities as well as the small details. The only way that they're going to discredit or attack him is when it comes to his faith in God. And that has been challenged before in his history. Daniel's public life and private devotion are not two separate things. He doesn't have the Daniel at home versus the Daniel in his career. The Daniel that is the politician is aligned in values with the Daniel who is a believer in the one true God. They're not a divergent individual. He's not two people living out these lives. He lived the same under scrutiny as he did in secret. His character held over time. It wasn't just that he was godly in certain moments. He was consistent. He was competent. He was diligent. People knew of his faith. And they knew his faith was something that was not negotiable when it came to him. Now, Daniel is a type, a real person, but when we look at this, it conjures up ideas of Jesus Christ. We're told that Jesus was examined, and in him was found no fault. But he was still condemned too. Not because of wrongdoing, but he was condemned because of who he was and what he stood for. Daniel's life challenges us to ask a hard question. If someone were to investigate our lives, what pattern do we believe they would find? Would they say that our public life matches our private devotion? Would the work that we do reflect excellence and trustworthiness? Or does that work reflect something less than godliness? Would our faith be visible enough for people to notice it? Is it the kind of faith that people know is non-negotiable, or have they watched us bargain, watched us consider diminishing our faith dependent upon the situation? Daniel is not declared to be sinless in Scripture. Please don't take him as such a person that he never made any mistakes, not at all. But in the pattern of his life, he was blameless. And the only thing that could be found as an accusation against him, the only point that they thought they could trip him up, is when it came to how non-negotiable and stalwart he was in his obedience to and faith to God. a lofty goal for any of us to aspire to pursue. Moving into verses 6 through 9. So what happens? These presidents and princes, so notice, you've got this tier of 120 princes. You've got a couple of other presidents that are peers with him, but he's a little bit higher. He's their senior. All right? They get together and they come to the king. That's got to be its own kind of thing, getting that many politicians together on the same page. And you know what they came together on? Attacking God's chosen. They come to him, King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors, the princes, the counselors, the captains, have consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a firm decree that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, unless it's you, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the decree, sign the document, that it be not changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which never changes. Wherefore King Darius signed the writing and the decree. Now, this is also a pattern that has been repeated throughout the book of Daniel. We have seen in other cases that leaders can get puffed up and elevate themselves on par with, in place of, or even above God. Darius signed a decree that essentially elevated himself into a position that only God should ever hold. There is one mediator between God and man, and it's not Darius. It's not me. It's not anyone else in this body. It's Jesus Christ himself. Now, what we saw with Nebuchadnezzar in chapter 3, he built an image. He demanded worship. He exalted himself, and God brought him down. Last chapter, chapter 5, Belshazzar, he profaned the things that were God, the sacred vessels. That irreverence and pride cost him his kingdom and his life. Darius here signs a law into place. It seems subtle, but he's redirecting the prayers of people to him and him alone for 30 days. In each case, we have a human ruler who is stepping into the place of God. The root is identical, though. We see in people pride. Elevating someone or ourselves above the limits that we deserve. You know, pride is a sin that can get to any of us. The most righteous, the most dedicated, the holiest person you know can become prideful. It's an amazing thing. How many people we have known in our years of ministry together who served God, and that service of God became a point of pride. They felt that they reached a point of being beyond rebuke. Look at what I've done. Surely my reputation entitles me to something. That's sin. Whatever we want to call it. Whenever we elevate ourselves to the points that are beyond what are our human limits and rightfully earned, that's sin. Some people, that pattern is control. Some people desire to have authority over others. They crave it. They want to direct other people and control everything around them. For some people, the issue is more spiritual blindness. They do not want to recognize that God is authority because they don't want to depend on him. Darius might not have been as overt as Nebuchadnezzar. We don't see any statues being built right here. But he's still participating in this same sinful pattern of misdirecting or misplacing the glory of God. This pattern itself highlights for you and I why we need a different kind of king. Earthly rulers will grasp for glory that does not belong to them. Look at Jesus. Deserved glory, deserved rulership, truly was the King of the Jews. He laid down the glory to serve and to save. Human leaders call people, come through me for my glory. Jesus says, come to me and I'll bring you to the Father. He reveals and restores us to him. Darius' sin is deeply human. We may not sign decrees, but we often want to control reactions of other people. We often want to control outcomes of situations. We often will subtly position ourselves as the center of the universe. Maybe one that seems even subtler and more noble. Sometimes we struggle to release what belongs to God and depend on Him. The question here is not, if I was in Darius' shoes, would I do the same thing? The question that I have for us tonight is, where are we tempted to take a place that belongs to God? The story of Daniel here is not just about faithful believers. We're halfway through the book tonight. It's about flawed rulers who keep repeating the same mistake. They reach for their own glory instead of submitting to the glory of God. And yet, in all of this, God is not threatened. He is still sovereign. He is sovereign over kings, He is sovereign over laws, and He is sovereign over outcomes. Let me ask you, you look around at the people around us in this world, what do you think are the areas that people are most tempted to do these same things? What are some ways that we see people today unwilling to submit to God, reaching for their own glory? And why? What do you see in humanity today? Let's go with that. Why do people worship money? There can be a couple of things there, right? And money itself isn't a bad thing. Scripture does not condemn wealth, but loving money or worshiping it, that's a problem. But why do people worship money? I mean, it's really an inanimate object, so it represents something. It's not the money itself, right? So why does money matter so much to people that we worship it? I can't see hands, sorry. Okay, some people think that money is happiness. So walk that through with me, church. If money is the path to happiness and I worship money because it can make me happy, then what is really the God? It's not money. Money's the path to happiness. So okay, so if happiness is the God, then what am I really worshiping? Things, feelings? Could be yourself. All right, let's go on. What's another reason? So buying happiness, not everybody wants things, right? Some people want money and never spend a dime of it. What was that? I heard another one. What's another reason people might accumulate or desire money but not spend it, but they crave it? It's what? It fills a hole. Power, security, all those things possibly, right? Security can be a problem, right? I don't know about some of you. Some of you are some wise people who probably have done this. This is one of the areas where your pastor struggles too, the idea of, I want to make sure I save up enough in case of, and you just fill in whatever you want in there, right? Rainy day, medical, whatever, right? But can I actually control that? I'd like to think I could, but when we talk about things like security, it sounds really noble, but it's kind of an independence thing. I'm not telling you all to blow your money. But if you do want to blow your money, I've got a list right here on my phone. I'll be happy to share you my Amazon list. And if you want to just throw your... For some people, we need that control. Security is about control. I don't want to rely on God. I want to take care of myself. I want to be at peace with how much I can do for myself. And we know many people who made good financial decisions and something medical happened or something with their children happened. Mudslide takes out a house. I mean, you go down the list, right? So much beyond our control. Money is a path. Not in itself bad, but why do we want it? And then we accumulate a lot of it for what purpose? It doesn't go with us. You take all the gold that this room possesses and take it to heaven, and all you've got is the rocks on which they walk. It doesn't do anything. All right, so Darius signs this decree. Daniel's got a little bit of a decision to make here, right? So let's talk about Daniel's decision. I'm not going to move it forward any. I want to just park in there for a little bit. Actually, verse 10. Let's do that much. When Daniel knew that the writing was signed. All right, so let me stop there. Now he's got to make a choice. Got really three options here. Option 1, stop praying for 30 days. Let's weigh that out. He will immediately get safety and his position will be preserved. He will not be in conflict with the law or his job or the king. He will compromise his relationship with God. There's a problem to it for him, right? To do this is going to be treating prayer as optional, allowing human authority to take precedent over devotion to God. For many of us, I think the decision might be a little more tantalizingly considerable than we'd like to think. Maybe I could whisper a prayer, sneak one in. Hide it. The issue here with Daniel was, if he does any of that, he is treating prayer as under the authority and governments of human institution. To him, prayer was not a ritual. This was his lifeline to Almighty God. To stop praying would not just be changing or modifying his behavior, it's a redefining of his allegiance. And can we go back, those of you who've been here with us through Daniel chapter 1, when he was given the chance to choose rely on the king or stay allegiant to God when it came to food, he already made his choice. It didn't change. Teenage Daniel, senior citizen Daniel, God was the choice. He wasn't willing to compromise that. So option 2 is the idea of praying secretly. Now, again, he could do this and he would have some devotion to God. The public wouldn't pick it up, but it is a fear-driven compromise. He's hiding his faith in God, which has always been open. It would be allowing pressure to dictate to him the terms of obedience. Daniel had always prayed openly. If he would start praying privately now, he would be sending the message that honoring God is only worth doing when it's safe. Option 3, which is what he took, is continue praying as usual. Now, this is going to get him exposed. There were consequences to the decision to serve God. A high likelihood of death. Don't know what the exact odds are, but I'd set him at greater than 99%. He's going to lose this position. He's going to lose his security. But what he will keep is his integrity before God. He remains consistent with a lifetime of faith. He continues to share a testimony that God is worthy regardless of the outcome. Now, what does Daniel do? He doesn't have a dramatic protest here. What does it say he does? He went into his house, his windows open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, knelt down 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he always did before. Daniel had some character that permeates every element of his story. His convictions were more important to him than convenience. What God thought of him mattered more than what man thought of him. Just because there was a crisis, he didn't change. He didn't invent some new response. He stayed grounded and continued to practice his faith as he always had, regardless of the circumstance, and he trusted God with the results. Likely outcome of this, he's going to die. He was okay if that was God's will for him. His faith was not determined by the situation. His faith was settled before he got to it. Again, pointing forward, Jesus faced a similar choice in the Garden of Gethsemane. Avoid suffering, submit to the Father's will. He chose obedience. Daniel was delivered from death. Jesus was not. Because of that, we are freed from living for the purpose of self-preservation. You and I, we face quieter versions of these same choices. We get the opportunity to compromise. I will stop serving God in prayer, in faithfulness, in calling. I will stop doing the things for God for a little while. It's just temporary, so that I can do this. We get tempted in other ways. I'll follow God, but I'm not going to do it openly. It'll just be between me and Him, my secret Savior. Sometimes it's the consistency. Will we remain faithful to God until it costs us something? I fear for the day that is to come when there are people, yes, there are people all over the world now, but I believe the day is coming when even in the United States of America, people are going to have to choose between their faith and their life. And that's going to take character and conviction, and that is going to take consistency. And I'm going to share something with you. If you do not choose to be faithful to God now, in prayer, in your reading of His Word, in your ministering to your friends and family and co-workers, if you're not obedient to holiness now, I'm going to share that it's going to be really difficult to choose in that moment that I will obey God and trust Him now when it's going to cost me everything. Daniel didn't choose the safest option. He chose the clearest explanation and expression of loyalty to God. When those moments of challenge come, we don't rise to new levels of courage. History tends to show that we settle into the way that we've always behaved. Daniel always lived trusting God in those. Let's take it forward a little bit. Let's do some good reading here. Let's get 11 through 20. See if I can read that much. Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. They came near, spoke before the king. Didn't you sign a decree? 30 days, den of lions. And the king answered and said, yeah, I did. That's true. According to the law of the Medes and Persians, which alters not. Then they answered and said, then Daniel, and again, here it goes with that whole Jewish thing, of the children of the captivity of Judah, doesn't respect you. And how many people do we see get upset at that idea? How dare you disrespect me? For the record, being disrespected by someone does not give you the right to sin. Doesn't respect the decree that you've signed. But he's still praying to someone else 3 times a day. The king, when he heard this, you see how angry he gets at Daniel? I don't even think he's angry at Daniel, is he? Who's he angry at? And what does he want to do for Daniel? He sets his heart on rescuing him out of this. He realizes he made the mistake. He got played. And he labored until the sun went down to try to get out of this. Better than Nebuchadnezzar, right? Then those men came back and said, "O king, you know that the law that you've signed, it can't be changed. All the law hangs on this. Think of all we'd have to overturn if you don't follow through with this." So the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. And what does the king say to cast him in here? "Thy God, whom you serve continually, will deliver thee." They bring a stone, lay it on the mouth of the den. The king seals it with his own signet. The purpose cannot be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went into his palace, and he passed the night fasting. No music to soothe him. No sleep. The king arose very early in the morning and went in a hurry to the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he cries with a woeful, sorrowful voice, "Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God, whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions?" Now, what we saw in this passage, we've moved from Daniel's actions to Darius' response. Daniel's life has deeply impacted the king. And understand, this is not the king that he's had for 10, 20, 30 years. Daniel's had an impact on this man. That says something. Man, that'll preach. I wonder how long we need to be around someone before we would have such an impact. I wonder, with the kingdom of Judah destroyed as it was, how much knowledge did this person even have of that God before he met Daniel? But Daniel's life was meaningful. Notice in verse 14, the king is emotionally distressed. He actually cares about him. And he makes a personal effort to try to rescue Daniel, but he's trapped. Not because he doesn't care, but because of his own law, he gets trapped. But he says in verse 16, "May your God rescue you." And then he fasts. And he doesn't sleep. He refuses entertainment. He put more into caring for Daniel than I dare say many of us put into our brothers and sisters and our country and our church. This man was impacted. At dawn, verse 19, he gets up and runs to the den, and that cry has mournfulness with a tinge of hope. This is deep respect. He's watched the man's life. He's concerned about him, and you can catch that there is some belief about this God that is emerging in him because of the life and testimony of Daniel. The way that Daniel operated earned his trust. He had built credibility. And his devotion to God had created curiosity about God. I fear that's one of the things that we lose when we lose devotion to God, is the people around us don't think that we see him as that important, that we don't see him as that impactful, and therefore they don't feel motivated to know more about him. How you and I treat God and spiritual disciplines, our relationship to him, it does preach a message to the people around us. Is he important to you? Is this something that we just keep in the car, or do we obey it, strive to? Is our relationship with him sacred? Darius doesn't just value Daniel, he's beginning to take Daniel's God seriously here. Daniel, nowhere in here, preaches a sermon, but his life did. The king saw that his faith could not be shaken, that Daniel has a God worth trusting, and he begins to hope in a God that we don't think he fully knows yet. A life that makes God believable to others. That's the calling for each of us. We are sent out into the world to shine that light into darkness, to go and make disciples. We are supposed to live a life that brings glory to our Father in heaven. Our lives are not just personal, they're witnesses. Our faithfulness can open doors for others to see and to seek God. We don't know who's watching, but I'm going to tell you something. Your life is shaping perceptions about God. In your workplace, in your community, in your family, in your household. It's not just a question of, am I being faithful? There's a question of, is my life helping others to take God seriously? Daniel didn't chase influence. He had been powerful. He had been revered. He had been wealthy. It didn't matter to him. That faithfulness that he demonstrated got him to high levels, stirred the heart of a king. But what he concerned himself with was that king. He wanted that king to see him faithful and devoted and trustworthy. Question for us. A life that is abiding in God may not always be loud, but it will be felt. And sometimes the life that we live before God will cause others to ask, is your God able? Let's roll it forward a little bit, verses 21 through 24. I don't know how long of a pause there was. Not going to lie to you. If I'm Daniel in there in the lion's den, I'm probably thinking about a funny way to respond when someone finally comes to open that door. Could have played the ghost of Daniel. Could have had dramatic pause for effect. But instead he responds, O king, live forever. My God has sent his angel and has shut the lions' mouths. They have not hurt me, for as much as before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. And the king's response is exceeding joy. And he commands that they take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel gets pulled up out of the den. Nothing hurt on him. Almost sounds like we're going back a little bit to a fiery furnace situation for Daniel, doesn't it? No evidence of any damage. But why was there no hurt found on him? Verse 23. Because he believed in his God. King has a response though, right? All right, I executed my law, and now all those men which accuse Daniel are cast into the den of lions. And he wipes out all of it. He goes far to their children, their wives, and they're destroyed before they ever get to the bottom of the den. Those were some hungry lions. It wasn't like they just had no appetite and Daniel was spared. They were starving. I got to tell you, especially these guys over here. I've ate with most of them. I ate with all of you all. Man, you get a starving animal and you offer them some meat, it's tough to get them to lay off. All of you. You see some ravenous, hungry thing that's starving. That's what these lions were. How on earth were they able to spend a whole night avoiding Daniel? It's supernatural. We look at Daniel's life. God confirms here what Daniel's life has been saying all along. This is a miracle that validates a message. Daniel, in verse 22, says, I was tried, I was investigated, but I was found innocent. His faith was vindicated. I trusted in my God. And God's power was displayed. The lions were completely restrained. Total contrast to what happens to his accusers. And understand, I don't know if he went to the full extent. The people that went into that den, he wiped out a lot of his leadership. Presidents and princes went into that den. This was going to take significant work, and everyone would have known about it. Daniel's life was not an illusion. This was real. I think that's something that the world is really looking for. Something real, not an illusion. That's true even of the church. It's sad how things have morphed over time. Not new to our generation, but there have been plenty of men and women of God, plenty of churches who give this illusion of having the deep relationship with God. Enough to make you think about it, enough to look pretty, but there really isn't any substance underneath it. And the world is not looking for an eloquent speaker in a nice suit, the friendliest people that they've ever met, the best programs in the comfiest auditorium, and a place to hang their hat and say, look at the place that I go worship. There are some people, the sheep that hear his voice and know him, that are looking for something authentic, something real, something that stands the test of time and remains consistent, something that's got deep roots. His consistency became credibility. Daniel prayed, Daniel trusted, and it showed up publicly. Darius is not just hearing about Daniel's God now, he witnessed the power of Almighty God. Daniel once again refused to compromise and did not look foolish. In fact, he was honored. The God Daniel trusted is clearly able to intervene and to save. Before the miracle, Daniel was respected. But how do you think that he was viewed after the miracle? What do you think Darius thought about Daniel after this happened? Do you think that Darius might have been open to hearing a little more about Daniel's God at this point? Daniel had to go through something really scary and really bad. God used that. Interesting thing, right? I've got plenty of people who have more life experience than me in the room tonight, and collectively, wow. But when you think about it, have you not seen times where people have been walking through some awful seasons that allowed God's glory to shine brighter in them? And many times it's been some of you, right? Some of you that are truly seeking the Lord have gone through some things that just don't seem like God is doing his very best for us, but God is using that to preach to people who are watching us. And that consistency matters. Jesus himself lived a perfectly faithful life. His claims were validated too, the resurrection. Daniel's deliverance confirmed his trust in God. The resurrection confirmed that Jesus is who he said he is. We are called to be faithful before we see the results. We're to be consistent even when we don't know the outcome. And we have to trust that our God sees, our God knows, and our God is able to confirm what is true in his own time. The miracle is not what made Daniel faithful. It revealed that he already was. A life that's abiding in God isn't looking for the dramatic moments. But when the moments come, they often shine a light on the faith that has been there all along. Let's bring it down here to verses 25 through 28. Then King Darius wrote unto all people, nations, and languages that dwelt in all the earth, Peace be multiplied unto you. I make a decree, let's do one of these again, that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. There's some interesting things he says right here. This pagan king who has been influenced by Daniel's life now says some things that are true about who God is that I question how many churchgoers actually accept sometimes. Here's what he says, for he is the living God. He's not an idol. He's not some idea. He is active. He is present. He is real. He says that he is steadfast forever. He just said that this is a king who lasts eternally. God is not temporary. He's not limited by time. His reign is not threatened by changing rulers or empires. His purposes outlast everything. His kingdom, that which shall not be destroyed. Above all human authority, his kingdom is unshakable and ultimate. He recognizes the supreme king. Notice what he says after that in verse 27. He literally, if you're going from the Hebrew here, rescues and he saves. Sure he does. God acts on behalf of those who trust him. That's always been the model. Those of us who trust in the work of Jesus Christ, he rescues us. He saves us. He delivers us from destruction. Notice here, he works signs and wonders in heaven and in earth. Whether it's natural forces or human forces, no weapon formed against us will prosper. God is mighty. He is active. And what did he do in this case? He delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. So, here we go. This Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Continued to be elevated and wasn't seeking any of that. God does pay attention to individual lives. Your life matters to him. He knows. He's watching you. It's not just nations. You might be in a situation right now that you see no way out of. It is impossible. God is able to protect even in those. God is a faithful God to those who trust him. That's what he's always wanted. Trust. That's what he asked of Adam and Eve, and they couldn't do it. That's what he's made salvation based upon, not just believing that he exists or believing that the Bible is true, but to trust him for salvation. He wants us to trust him. Even though there's extreme threat, Darius saw these attributes partially. But we get the benefit all these years later of seeing Jesus, the living God who came near. We understand through his resurrection how he can endure forever, how he can have a kingdom that's never shaken. What Darius witnessed in one miracle, we see in the Gospels. It's interesting. You know what Darius didn't have that you and I do? He did not learn about God from the Scriptures. Where did he learn about it from? He learned about it from Daniel's life, didn't he? This is the message of the mission of the believers of Sequoia Baptist Tabernacle. What are people learning about God from watching our lives? Are they learning that he's real? That he's stable? That he's powerful? Do they see a God who cares? There's a pagan king here who ends up preaching the truth about God. Why? Because one man chose to live faithfully in front of him. A life that's abiding in God is not just a life that survives. It's a life that becomes a window through which others can see who God really is. Should be our prayer. God, let my family see Jesus in me. Let my friends and my coworkers and my classmates see Jesus in me. When they see Him clearly, maybe they'll end up in the same spot of watching and saying, you know what? I've watched what He's done in your life, and truly He is the living God. And I want to know Him. I want to be in that kingdom that will never end. I want a God who rescues and saves. There are a lot of broken people in this world looking for peace. And our God offers a peace that passes all understanding. A lot of people in this world looking for redemption. And our God is the great Redeemer. We should be encouraged that we might face some trials and some oppositions and some suffering, but if God is able to work through that, if God is able to share His glory to other people through our suffering, then that's a life well spent. What is our life preaching? So Daniel in the lion's den. Maybe Daniel was on the menu, but God didn't let him get ordered. Daniel has demonstrated a life of consistent faithfulness to God that is preached to people in power, high positions, faraway lands. We won't ever know the message and the impact of Daniel beyond his home country. All of this is happening when he's home. You realize all those years, how many places do you think Daniel went? How much royalty and nobility did Daniel interact with? Friends, that really was one life. It would amaze us what God could do through ours. The story's about to change. For those who've read this before, you recognize in Daniel chapter 7, Daniel starts prophesying about what is to come. Someone who understands global politics better than I ever will starts talking about things that even from his era he has no way of knowing. But can I trust that Daniel's message is true? Truly, his God is the living God. He ought to know. What message is your life preaching? Is our life one that is pointing people to Jesus? Can they see Him in us? Doesn't matter if you failed yesterday, don't quit. Pray before God, arm up, and go again tomorrow. Allow Him to use you to bring people closer to Him. That's a life worth living. Let's be dismissed in a word of prayer. Brother Rob, would you mind closing us, sir?